Okay, everyone, welcome to this evening. I know right now you're seeing the presenter view on the slide deck. We'll get that corrected in just a second. But welcome to this evening's Martin Luther King lecture. On behalf of the committee, welcome again. My name is Calvin Hill, and I serve as the Vice President for Inclusion and Community Engagement here at the college. And again, welcome to our 8th annual Martin Luther King Jr. lecture. While we're gathered here this evening in somewhat difficult year and this virtual setting, we come together to celebrate and remember Dr. King. As some of you may know, Dr. King was our 1964 commencement speaker. And during his speech to our graduates, he spoke from the theme of remaining awake through a great revolution. His theme was timely then, just as it is today. And during his speech, he called upon our graduates in 1964 to be courageous and critical thinkers. Tonight, we continue his call by calling upon those of us in attendance to continue to be courageous and to think critically about the issues that are impacting us today. Following our speaker, you will have the opportunity to ask questions related to his courage, his story, and his journey. I ask that you use the question and answer feature within this platform as you do so. In addition to our speaker this evening, we will also come together to recognize members of our campus and City of Springfield community who have positively and significantly contributed to creating a welcoming and inclusive environment. Therefore, immediately following our lecture and Q&A, I ask that you join us for our Martin Luther King Jr. lecture, as well as our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Awards. Joining us this evening to help us to celebrate is the college's 13th president, Dr. Mary Beth Cooper. Dr. Cooper will share words of welcome before she introduces our student trustee. Dr. Cooper.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. I am so excited to welcome Tommie Smith to Springfield College. The timing of this visit, even virtually, comes at a critical time for the college. Whether we are managing the pandemic or addressing systematic racism, Springfield College comes together as a community to make things better. Tonight, Tommie Smith joins our community and joins in that collaborative effort. Tonight, we also honor members of the community who make a difference every day in ways large and small. We are stronger as a college, as a city, and as a region because of the work that they do. My sincere thanks. However, my task tonight is really just to introduce our student trustee and member of the class of 2021, Chris Wren. From an athletic standpoint, both Mr. Wren and Mr. Smith run or ran the 200 and 400. Now, Tommie ran world record times of 19.88 and 44.5 seconds, by the way, seconds. Just a little faster than the times that Chris has run, but Chris, there's still time. Got plenty of time left. More importantly, the similarities of both men are striking. Both have used their status as leaders and athletes to push social justice and amplify others' voices. Also, when given the opportunity, both have made the most of being able to use their platforms to help create a more just world and point out injustices and indifferences. Neither are afraid of uncomfortable conversations or shying away from the spotlight to better their communities. I'm proud to know Chris, and I look forward to getting to know Tommie. I now turn over the floor to Chris to introduce tonight's speakers. Chris?
Thank you, Dr. Cooper. I was getting a little nervous. I thought you were going to say my PRs and compare them to, and it would have been really bad. But thank you.
I got you.
Thank you for that. But as a track athlete at Springfield College with a strong passion for social justice issues, Dr. Tommie Smith is someone that I've always admired. As you could tell by his pictures in my living room, I kind of set it up. I do most of my meetings here, so it's not, but I kind of turn my camera so you guys can see the picture. When I spoke with Dr. Smith for an interview last week, it didn't feel like an interview or really go like an interview. I think I tried to ask him questions, and he first asked me, what's your event, son? And I told him it was the 400, and he joked that if he was my coach, that I'll be running a lot of 550s. And if my coach is on the call, I hope he's not taking notes. Over the course of our conversation, it seemed more like Dr. Smith was giving me advice about life and my 400 time than, really having a normal interview. And overall, during the short 30 minutes we had, it seemed like he just wanted to help me. And I think that's what Dr. Smith was doing that day in 1968. I think he was just trying to help the world. While America was reeling from riots across the country following the death of Martin Luther King Jr., he wanted to help the world see that he was reeling from that pain too. And just because he ran fast didn't mean that he wasn't still a Black man. Dr. Smith told me in our interview last week, being a Black young athlete, not many people wanted to see your academic prowess, only how fast you could run and how good you could make them feel. Everyone wants to be a winner, even if they have to win vicariously through you. Even after being sent home from the Olympic Games and having his career abruptly ended, after breaking a world record, being the first man to do so under 20 seconds, Dr. Smith has still dedicated his life to the cause of oppressed people. It's my honor to introduce a social justice legend and the next Wheaties cover athlete, Dr. Tommie Smith.
Thank you. Thank you very kindly. I'm trying to be very passive in where I stand. Number 13, don't be afraid of that number, President, because that's the number of world records that I broke or held in my lifetime. And I don't want to be on a ship that's sinking because you will be there with me. So we will passively thank God for his gifts. And it truly, folks, it truly is an honor to, I suppose, conversate with Springfield College. I know that. Your staff, also the students, my favorite people, and friends. I think it's on this 8th annual Dr. Martin Luther King Lecture Series. Never lose hope. I repeat that. Never lose hope. Unity wins. And unity wins by concentrating on issues that keep us apart. Believe in yourself and continue that belief. If you don't believe in yourself, how can you help those who have the same belief? Have faith in that educational bridge which you are constructing with a foundation, people, supported by social equity concerns. Don't die on this. Don't die on this. Now, how many of us, when we deal in situations that we're not sure of, say in a general conversation, believe in someone else's verbal thought or explanation concerning an issue that you know by proof is contrary to their speculation, and you just sit, smile, or even worse, and then you move on? Well, let me tell you something. It does happen because, as you will learn just a few minutes later, I am very guilty of that. But let no one drag you so low as to not communicate when that necessary freedom to speak is violated by silence or worse. I say this because when I was in college, I was a very quiet kid because I didn't know what to do about where I was from, but just sit and smile. Nobody told me to talk. Whether you arouse someone in your immediate hearing range, or you thought you looked good just sitting there. But he was a man who arrested social ignorance and proved the need for social equality, racial liberties, and verbal involvement. This man also believed in abiding to the revelation of redemptive sacrifice. Now, sacrifice, a sacrificial giving or working toward something better to come. Isn't that a great notice? Something better to come, sacrifice, understanding, believe, pray, and keep moving. Dr. and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was he was one of these oratorical poets of reverence who was recognized by many as a disturber of unjust peace. Now, isn't that something? Because he brought direct attention to the inhumane and unconstitutional treatment bound by the injustices and belief of racist ideology. People, I am before you this day, only one man, only Tommie Smith, Dr. Smith, a 400-meter man, Tommie Smith. I hated that race. And I've been blessed and favored to stand at a time when standing for racial and social equity was not a safe indulgence. Back in the 60s, oh my goodness. Especially when the whole world had a chance to see it firsthand for the first time. And I've been asked many times, folks, many times, what benefit is a blessing or favor if it caused you pain and suffering? And I've always believed in divine order. There's something bigger than you and I. I believed in 1968, my goodness, over 5 decades ago, and I still do, that standing for social justice anytime is redemptive. And the sacrifices today is no greater than that of those freedom fighters who perished on the historical path of hope, people fighting for justice. And this was before the Civil War and the Emancipation Proclamation of 1863. Remember that, 1863. You see, a battle is never won if first you don't engage. I mean, this is out on the football field or running that 400 meters or 200 meters or anytime in your life. And I also believe when one encounter problem acts linked to social inequity, guided by systemic racism or worse, and your reaction is a spineless, oh, well, you should adjust your attitude and realize that you are important enough for others who sacrifice their lives just so you can continue yours. And if you are content with that attitude, with it very symbolic, lethargic, spineless, unconcerned, and non-motivational attitude, you certainly become part of a growing problem, which is incessantly dangerous. But hope still reigns. I don't mean R-A-I-N-S, I mean R-E-I-G-N-S. And faith should never be doubted. Just very quickly here, faith is having confidence in what you hope for to fruition, And it is scripturally written and ecumenically described and believed that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. But without work, hope will fade, because we may think that because we spend just a little time on solving one problem, that might be enough to disengage the social ignorance of racist exchanges nationwide. You got to work a little bit more, people, work a little bit more. Work must continue toward social parity and equality. And that's work. Believe you me, buddy, that's work. There is life in believing. So don't throw away hope because the ingredients used wasn't to your taste. Just unite. Back off. Unite a little faith and belief to your thought process, and you will notice the lasting aroma of unity and group success. I said group success. But you got to continue to move forward, because you're going to have some people that's better than a brake on a Mercedes. Stop right now. Working together, we can cause a change. But you know what makes changing or that cause so lasting and globally strong is the concentration of different ingredients or personalities en route to a giant pot called unity. Working together and proving the need to succeed is a continual sacrifice. Working together must include an open mind so that the suggestions can be heard and promoted to a platform of understanding. And yes, the struggle continues. And hope should never be an outdated process of thought. We've come a long ways, folks. We have come a long ways through the maze of social ignorance. And many of us have tasted that recipe of social destruction commanded by a racist ideology. A unity walk requires unity talk. And you'll find yourself becoming less critical of others once you make such team talk a habit. That's a good habit. We all have bad habits, but communication and love for each other, even if you don't like them, love them anyway, because that goes beyond man's love. This is God's love I'm talking about. So how can we fight social unawareness and racism on the way to unity when we believe that hope just may be or is a passion that's obsolete? No, it's never obsolete. Hope is never obsolete. So let us not let hope die. We've had enough funerals. We've had enough funerals. Now, there are those of us who may believe that by keeping quiet and move with that lethargic, non-concerning academic perennial flow, believing that the path for social equality is somebody else's duty. Actually, some of us may believe we are protected from social bias because we have a good job, or we are the right color, or maybe because we smile a lot. Or if I step on your toe, just keep quiet and scream, nobody else will hear you. And one that can really take you under is you might think that you have friends in high places, but the higher you think with that kind of social misdirection, the further you'll fall when you realize how wrong you were. Just because you're afraid or not strong enough should not obligate or compel you to run and hide. Now, those who choose not to be heard places a deterrent on those who needed to hear your inclusion. Don't be afraid, folks, to rise up and enjoy transparency. Communication is a laxative to things that are pinned up. Think about it. You'll get it before you get home. Some of us may know the history of the iconic moment on August 28th, 1963. I do realize I'm dating myself, but you know what I'm talking about. Out there when I was a young boy, they say, you know what I'm talking about. You know it. You know what I'm talking about. But this was in 1963 at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King stood with social intensity and said, and I quote, he said, "I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." Dr. King's word and his certain attitude toward his complained about many times work. This having withstood the weathering of time. Time in its perfect state has no respect of individuality. It treats everybody the same. Time is an infinite space, and working together toward unity must continue indefinitely. So, my friends, colleagues, number 13, and anybody else who I haven't labored to call, let no man, woman, or child indicate to anybody that overcoming is a dead issue. It is not. But Not only was Dr. King one of the greatest orators who ever laid sound to words, he was a non-secular preacher who trusted faith to endure the intolerable attitudes of those who would literally sit back with unjustified lethargic ignorance, hands saturated with the blood of perished freedom fighters, and say, I got mine, where yours? With no feeling. If that's you, yeah, I'm picking on you. If that's you, you ought to be ashamed to breathe. I'll say that. You ought to be ashamed to breathe. There are those of us from the 60s, hey, I am one of them, who recognize the immediate need to search for answers and social bridges to cross. Lord have mercy. My collegiate days saw the closing of doors as I approached to ask for apartments or living spaces in boarding homes. Of course, we were denied and asked to vacate the premises. But my white classmates were welcomed in only a few minutes after the Black athletes had left and had no problems renting. You know where that goes, right? You know what that is. It was in 1968 at the 19th Olympiad in Mexico City, my Olympic platform birth became my historic stand of silence that was heard around the world. But of course, no malignancy intended. I didn't know what that was. It was not done by me on that platform as I militarily faced the flag, because believe it or not, I was ROTC. And I think I was about to be a lieutenant in the college program, but I didn't get a chance to go to Vietnam. Praise God, from whom all blessings flow. It was a cry for freedom, the victory stand for Tommie Smith. The victory stand, highlighting differences of why that platform was my sacrifice, continuing the tireless struggle catapulted by the Olympic Project for Human Rights, or OPHR, promoting humane, athletic, and political views of action, confronting the Jim Crow acts on solid ground. We were serious. We were from 17 years old through my age, 23, 24, to Ralph Boston age, that's ageless. And we were tirelessly fighting for people who had no platform to fight for, the educational inclusion. But now today, the inclusion of athletic involvements and support has catapulted. Boom, gone. With Colin Kaepernick, gone. Then we see the killers in the streets. Still here. We must continue. The battle is not over. And all these things happen across the country. Now, folks, we have. Say her name. I can't breathe. It's a battle that you and I can continue to wage war against with a smile on our face. Many freedom fighters have died on social battlegrounds, fighting for that seat, which students, which you are sitting today. Yeah, you, that seat. They visualized a better existence for us new wave people who too soon forget the struggle and certainly from whence we come. The power, faith dreaming, and the understanding of self is on the rise, We can't stop. So young people, it's okay to dream. There is power in dreaming. Dr. King also said in '63, I was a freshman in college, he said, I have a dream that one day in the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will rise and be able to sit down together at a table of brotherhood. He went on to say, but not only that, let freedom reign from the stone mountain of Georgia. Now remember, this is 1963, 100 years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation and the Civil War. or the war between the states, depending on how your educational instructors taught it to you. Today, people, today, I gotta say that again. Today, I am living Dr. King's dream over 5 decades. Isn't that something? So people, especially you students, don't wallow in despair if that dream of yours doesn't come when you want it to. Don't be lethargic in your responsibility to get up and attend those classes. Get up and attend those classes. Get up and attend those classes. Sit before you in that curriculum. And when you get there, hold your heads high with pride as you occupy your seat in that front row that has been paid for you by humane sacrifice. Thank you very much. Sacrifice of our forefathers. But where are they now? Just so you could be here obtaining what they could not. Their sacrifices are your blessings. You've been redeemed, students. You've been redeemed. And those of others who are still learning about freedom, about the love of togetherness. Sacrifices have been made. Rise up and contribute. Rise up and contribute. Open your mouth and communicate. Don't be like Tommie was back in the day when he was afraid of his color. He was afraid to say something because people might think that he's dumb. Dumb sometimes is much more than smart because it tells the truth. You don't have to run the 200-meter race in my world record time of 18.3 in front of the world to make a social awareness point and then be ridiculed, prosecuted, sacrificing families, and etc. It has already been done for you. Use it. You don't have to be a rocket science to fly your own thoughts in conversation. But what you must do is have faith in your takeoff platform, your background of thought, your goodness in your heart, in respect to your direction, and understand that everyone will not immediately be able or maybe even never understand the freedom of expression. Use yours. If you're not understood, somebody will. Somebody will. For me, folks, it was Mexico City in 1968. I was a mere wet behind the ear. I just had turned 24, only 3 months earlier. I did not throw a rock and hide my hand. Don't sit in the back row and miss the opportunity of an open forum to celebrate verbally. In your daily routine, offer your suggestions when applicable. And don't forget that the difference in opinion or understanding strengthens your platform to contribute. Rise with pride and don't wither in silence. Don't sit in the back row of society and wish you would have heard what went on. It's not gonna happen. Help others by verbally communicating with absolute dignity and pride. Stand up, talk, reveal your pride. Talk, conversate. It's a new day, folks. It's a new day. Don't permit anyone to drag you down so low as to destroy your contribution. You must contribute when suggestions, so your understanding of subject matter will be free of confusion and ambiguity. And be positive of outcome. Though the differences may be obvious, no one is perfect. But your social and verbal contributions could save your brother's or your sister's life. I should have is not good enough. It's what you must do when you have a doubt of, am I doing right or wrong? Don't walk away and discuss with ignorance getting the best of you and madness destroying your pride. Please don't let that happen. I know the feeling of it. I learned very early in life that going to battle with light armor was social suicide. So I remain stable in my quest for an opportunity, folks, through faith, to spread light on the evidence of things not seen. Mexico City, the 19th Olympiad, was my blessing to make a silent gesture heard around the world. And my cry for constitutional freedom and humane deliverance was heard. I didn't give up on society, folks. I didn't give up on society, no matter what you saw, what your daddy said or your granddaddy. I offered hope through awareness, through my sacrifice. When you could have and you did not limit one's expectation of the private outcome. Don't let madness destroy the chance to learn and contribute. Ask yourself, what have I contributed to the struggle for constitutional freedom? What have I contributed to the struggle for constitutional freedom? If you have not, well, you gotta continue building on your takeoff platform. Continue dreaming. There is power in dreaming, because that's the future of a lot of us. Dreamers are believers, and you know the rest of it. Believers are achievers. I had to reveal on that platform in 1968 what some called a negative silence to make a positive stand. Sacrifice may have plagued our futures, and they might continue, but don't let it kill our spirit and hope and dignity through faith. You must believe in yourself. Dreams are not empty. Plant your seeds deep within and faithfully care for them with the unity of love. Yep, unity wins. Love keeps us together. And having faith is the root of life. And don't permit the word sacrifice to run you away. Let us remember him in the words of Coretta Scott King, his wife, in May of '68. Listen to this. He was a preacher for all people, a drum major for peace, a drum major for justice, a drum major for righteousness. Let us also remember him as a man who refused to lose faith in the ultimate redemption of mankind. So, friends, foes, I challenge us all to become proactive in all we do. And let us remember our lifespan in time. Life begins to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Yeah, maybe you've heard it before, but redundancy at times is one of the best educational tools. We must be willing to sacrifice in order to achieve. Students, time is an infinite space. Grab on to your star and follow it indefinitely. All things are possible if you believe. Stand on it, believe. Explain your feeling of excitement when you believe in yourself. And let us remember, I'm going to remind you my 4 points. 4 points of achievements. 4 points of unity and never losing hope. You got to have something to remind you of everything. Prepare prayerfully. Proceed positively. Pursue persistently. Plan purposefully. With God, all things are possible, but you must believe. I thank you for your ears. I just hope you go back to your movement of educational forward. Thank you very kindly.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Tommie Smith. Please join me in giving him a rousing virtual standing ovation.
Thank you, folks. Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Smith, my name is Marty Dobrow. I'm a professor of communications at Springfield College, and I delivered the first MLK lecture, and they've definitely gotten way better since that time, culminating with a really magnificent one tonight. Such an inspirational message. Great the way that you challenge people to respond to injustice in such a soulful way, and to understand that silence is really not an option, that we really need to respond when we see something that is wrong, that we need to stand up. I wanted to also thank Chris Rim for that fantastic introduction. Chris, my student, my podcast partner, my friend and inspiration. Also, Dr. Calvin Hill for elevating our college, for gently challenging us to align with the better angels of our nature. And of course, to President Mary Beth Cooper, referred to as number 13, Dr. Smith, and it's been good luck for us at Springfield College. Martin Luther King obviously delivered the commencement address here in 1964. I think the greatest day in Springfield College history, and that was almost 50 years before Dr. Cooper arrived, but it was not until she arrived that we really began to honor that moment in our history, as evidenced by this speech. And I've always thought that this should be a national civil rights moment at Springfield College, and I think we lived that out tonight. We have some questions, and I'm going to moderate them, and in that role, I get the honor of asking the first question, Dr. Smith, and here it is. You referenced Dr. King quite a bit in your speech in terms of the March on Washington, in terms of those beautiful words from Coretta Scott King in May of '68, the month after he was assassinated. I am just curious, he was assassinated in April of 1968. That's the same year that you had your moment in Mexico City about 6 months later.
That's right.
How much were you driven by Dr. King at the time? Do you remember where you were at the time of his assassination? How much was he on your mind as you participated in those Olympic Games?
You know, we dedicated our Olympic triumphs to his legacy. Although you didn't hear it on the victory stand, we only had a few minutes on the victory stand, so we had to show it by concentrating on sight. Seeing is believing. And I know my wife was with him more than I was. I was on the West Coast, and he did a lot of his talking, his moving on the East Coast. And I prided in the essence of his strict delivery with a smile on his face, knowing that he was the curator of God's word, and the people that believed in him, I know they tarried a lot with what he was saying and understood what was needed, but was afraid to do what he did on a lot of areas because of sacrifices. He was a martyr, and he delivered life to those who weren't even born then, even before me, and that's pretty old, even before me. Even with me now, you're still pretty old if you're born in '44. And he was a legacy which I can't forget. Almost on a daily basis, I see something that he said in some of his speeches. So he's been living with me for a long time now. And I think his words is a freedom legatory session of our everyday living. Just rely on what he said, and I think you will be okay.
All right, wonderful. So our first question came in, and I'm going to do my best with this name. I believe it is Constantine Simopoulos. And
Good.
he writes in, she or he writes in, I'm not sure, as follows. Dear Dr. Smith, thank you so much for all you have done through Olympism, for all humanity, and for human rights. I wanted to ask you if you think that your history, legacy, and impact would have been any different had you not won gold in 1968.
I can't pronounce his name. I can pronounce Christos Papanikolaou, one of my teammates at San Jose State University. Had I not won the race, had I gone 1, 2, or 3, I would have still been on the victory stand, and something still would have aroused. But because I was number 1, I had to fulfill my responsibility of being the greatest 200-meter person in the world at that particular day. And even if I had not won that race or come in second or third, I would have still educationally moved toward equity after '68. I was a student teacher at that particular time, and I was going on in my educational fortitude to become a speaker of equality, education, and devoured my life to people who needed the help of God.
All right, fantastic. Our next question is actually more of a statement. It comes from one of our recently retired faculty, Rick Parr, who very passionate about issues of social justice. And he mentions that, he said, it's been a long road, 50 years from this time. And he was referencing a story that is now come off my screen, but it was a time when I think Jake Scott was hired and hired you then at Oberlin, and he was connected with him. So he just wanted to welcome you. And so I don't know who is monitoring the disappearance of these questions, but that vanished before I could get through it. But Rick welcomes you. Next question says, from someone pronounced, I think Tuere, says, Dr. Smith, when exploring ways of bringing people together, how do you get past those who want to try to tell you that they already know what you are going to say and don't want to truly communicate?
Silence is golden. And the things that I know that happen, and I believe that will happen, yeah, I will conversate with them, and I will talk more about why they think the way they do, and to carry the conversation to a limit of both understanding that you don't have to believe everything you hear, as long as it has proof of what you hear can be tolerated truthfully by both parties. You say, I don't want to get political on anybody here, but the truth of the matter is that those of us, our heads are so hard that we think we know any dividing factor that might come across in a conversation. We must listen to everybody and talk about their realities, maybe of stupidity, but it's the reality to them that makes them as stupid as the word they speak.
Okay, this one comes from Donna Wang, and she writes, I want to thank Dr. Smith for taking time to speak with us and for his commitment and passion for activism. I'd like to ask him about the day on the platform. The picture always brings tears to my eyes. What were you thinking or feeling as you delivered that powerful message?
God, please deliver me from this platform. You know, I had received numerous death threats a year before I even thought about running in the Olympic Games, because I was, even in college, a follower of freedom and freedom marches and freedom fighting. In fact, I think it was my sophomore year when I ran my first world record. I ran the 200-meter, 220-yard straightaway in 19.5 seconds. Where's my 400-meter man? Where is he? And that same evening, of that race, I joined about 200 students from San Jose State marching on back roads to San Francisco, the Bay Area, to rally around issues dealing with education and inclusion. So I've been included in inclusion and human rights for a long time. Even on the days of my world records, I was still there. I was so quiet that people didn't know who I was. In fact, some asked me, do you know the guy who ran the world records today? I said, yeah, I know him. He's a good friend of mine. And I succumbed the attitude of my being the greatest.
Terrific. There's another question that was very similar in that, so I'm going to skip that one. The next one comes from an anonymous attendee. And this person asks, was the gesture of raising your fist spontaneous or pre-planned? I read in John Carlos's autobiography that Jesse Owens attempted to keep the protest from happening, but I also thought it was somewhat spontaneous and last minute.
Yeah, the spontaneity had more to do with what happened than us planning. We were young guys who knew that the fight in the streets were devout toward death. And I wanted to do a part to make it clear that I was a part of the people who viewed equality a necessity. And the platform I had was one of the world's biggest platforms, but it was the only platform I had. So I had to sacrifice everything just to make that minute and a half statement of righteous in my mind, to advocate the equity in people and not to reveal anxiety or militancy, because it was not a militant move. It was a mood of love. It was a move that I did to make stronger the necessity to understand people, the nature of people, the love of the entity of what I believe all the time is divine order.
All right, Dr. Smith, this one comes from the Muslim American Leadership Alliance. And they ask, Dr. Smith, you speak a lot about faith, both as a source of inspiration in your personal life and a source of motivation for larger social movements. In the current moment, what do you see as the most important roles of faith communities in reckoning with inequality and doing social justice work?
I do a lot in the Word, a deacon in my church, and that Hebrew 1, which is faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. All through that chapter, it speaks of a togetherness, a belief in what you do to make others feel worthy of that cause, and believing that you are not the person who make the decisions. You are the person that hold your strength behind what you are told. If it doesn't arouse it's not your fault because of your belief. But that's why the belief is certainly an interesting fact, and conversation through this makes awareness of those around you. And I know that the situation that you're talking about, I was approached with that way back in the 60s, and I still have a human reverence for that, because I do believe that belief is what we need, and not a script of what someone else tells us. Read, R-E-A-D, read your book. It doesn't have to be the Bible, but it must be the truth.
All right, wonderful. This is it's stated as more of a comment than a question, but I think it's a very heartfelt one. This comes from Ocean Eversley. It says, I'm a 63-year-old African-American MSW student at Springfield College. I just want to thank you for putting your humanitarian social justice fist in the air at the Olympics, because it was at that moment that I knew I would use my intellect and athleticism as a 100, 200, and 400 meter track champion to advocate for social justice and humanitarian rights.
Amen.
A hard road, but a road well traveled. I've wanted to thank you personally for the last 50 years. So thank you, Dr. Tommie Smith, for every hardship you endured, because you would not stay silent.
That's heartwarming. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
That was really a beautiful sentiment. This is off the chat. We have a few questions. This is from Donald Brown, who writes, can you comment on Mr. Avery Brundage, who was the head of the Olympics committee during your time in the Mexico Olympics? Who do you think that he did not, why do you think that he did not support you, Mr. Carlos and Mr. Norman?
Let's go back in history a few years, even before 68, in 1936. He was apportioned mostly with what is that? They call me what they called me to describe me as a militant and it's stormtroopers they called me, but it described me as a communist mover by raising a fist that looked like the salute of Hitler. So I was talked about on many issues. Oh, Avery Brundage. Avery Brundage was a racist, period. I mean, I'm not going to say he was almost a racist. No, he was a racist. He tallied more with Hitler's extensions of belief than he did the Americans. He, at times, idolized why Hitler was the way he was, that symbolized that it's a good way to be. What he was saying is, I'm like Hitler. He wrote the Black athletes a few letters, a few sentiments about what might happen if we would tolerate a move anywhere in the Olympic Games, because he said the Olympic Games are not there for political views. And if you partake, you boys, in any type of action like that, you will be sent home. And there wasn't any place that I read that standing on the victory stand with your head bowed praying was something that it should not have been done. We can mobilize a lot of conversations about this, and hopefully we can come to a realization that he was a person that you did not want to be close to while you're competing.
All right, this question comes from one of our real lions of social justice on our campus, David Rutter, who writes, how would you assess the work of present-day athletes in the fight for social justice? Is there more or something different they can do to leverage their platform?
Well, you know, the athletes nowadays are not the first athletes that stood up for a right or a human right, but we have more people being involved now. More of the younger athletes are stronger in their verbal extensions than it was some time ago. We fought, we died to make equality a real issue and not just something that you're talking about Black folks. Equality now strands the globe of other than Blacks all around. It's a human nature. That's why it was the Olympic Project for Human Rights in 1968, not the Olympic Project for Black rights. Although Blacks had a part in that movement, number one, because there were Black athletes on the victory stand holding up a Black power fist, most people call it, and issuing not an ultimatum, only a cry for freedom. So that's what our work is now, freedom, and not the extension of just Black folks. We're talking about folks who are in need, and that's folks of color.
Okay, we have about 5 more minutes of this Q&A, and this one comes from Lily Gould, who writes, what would you consider active allyship to look like today through your experience? Thank you so much for speaking your truth. We appreciate you, Dr. Smith.
Very good. Thank you.
And so she's asking about what you consider active allyship. Like,
sorry. Truth to oneself.
Yeah.
And following the chimes of equality, you might say of equilibrium or parity, and not afraid to talk to people who might have a different idea than yours. I mean, we must communicate. Don't be afraid to say your piece, and don't leave, as I said when I was speaking earlier, in hate. Resolve yourself before you break that conversation. And then if you don't finish it, come back the next day and continue it. Conversation is needed. I mean, it's simple, so simple it's difficult to understand or even talk about sometimes, because it's not a situation that PhDs in the Revolutionary War on socialism, or on capitalism, socialism, or equal rights. Talk about the things and don't pull a gun and shoot anybody. Be proactive.
This one comes from, very good, very good. This one comes from Jacques St. John, who writes, thank you for your time tonight, Dr. Smith. I'd like to ask, despite some of the backlash received for your actions after winning the Olympics, was there anyone that surprisingly had your back and or supported you and helped you through that time of your career coming to an abrupt end?
You know, the victory stand was a surprise to everybody because only a few days before that race, the Black athletes did meet with Jesse Owens, of course, as you mentioned earlier. And we told Jesse Owens at that particular time, no, Mr. Owens, this is not your time. Even in your time, Avery Brundage threw you out of the Olympic Games, threw you out of off the Olympic team because you wanted to come back home and spend time with your new bride. And years later, he kicked 2 other Black athletes out because they believed in human rights. And the man had different organizations in Santa Barbara, California, even where I was. And a lot of people had my back in what I believed in, because I don't like to lie. You have to cover, next time you talk, to cover the lie you just lied about. Whether it's racism or whether it's counteracting something that you did was right, in terms of human being, human nature, then it was a lie just to become big and great in your own right. So my back was covered by the grace of truth when I got back. I didn't starve. I stayed hungry 90% of the time, me and my young son and wife, but we managed.
All right. Well, that question by Jock. It's leads us to a perfect segue into a wrap up, because I didn't know that question was coming, even though I know Jock pretty well. There was no coordination beforehand, but it does provide the perfect connective tissue here. He's asking if someone surprisingly had your back. And Dr. Smith, as you may well know, one of your Olympic teammates on that track and field team in 1968 was Springfield College's own Tom Waddell, who participated in the decathlon. I know that Tommie won it, but Tom Waddell was the second American, took 6th, and he was arguably the greatest athlete in Springfield College history. Himself, he has an amazing social justice story that's an iconic part of Springfield College that we don't have time to get into tonight. But one of the fascinating things about Tom Waddell is right in the aftermath of the protest that you and John Carlos made, he stood up so strongly for you. I will close the Q&A by just reading from a UPI story dated Friday, October 18th. I think your race was on the 16th. So this was the UPI story regarding the reaction of teammates. A lot of people were very critical of your actions. And this comes from the UPI story. It says, Tom Waddell of New York, a member of the US decathlon team, was the most outspoken. Waddell, a 30-year-old Army physician stationed at Walter Reed Hospital in Washington, said he, quote, absolutely agreed with the issues raised by Carlos and Smith. Quote, I was pleased by their protest, Waddell said. I was afraid they weren't going to. I was disappointed more Negro athletes backed down. Waddell was asked whether he didn't think Carlos and Smith had discredited the American flag by sinking their chins on their chests and holding their fists aloft when the flag was raised and the anthem played. Quote, I think they have been discredited by the flag more often than they have discredited it, said Waddell, due for his Army discharge the day the Olympics end. So that's, I think, gives you a sense that there were people indeed who had your back. Tom Waddell, someone we're very, very proud of here at Springfield College. We have something called the Sports and Social Justice Symposium where we give out an award in his name. This year, we're actually having his daughter is going to be the keynote speaker for that on April 9th. And I know that she was thrilled when I mentioned to her that you were our MLK speaker. So on behalf of the Springfield College community, I want to thank you for that incredible job of handling our volley of Q&A. It's been a great, great evening. And we are now going to turn things over to our awards about these very issues that you represent. And so I am going to turn things over to our Director of the Office of Multicultural Affairs, Felicia Lundquist.
Thank you, Marty, and thank you, Dr. Smith. It gives me great joy to talk a little bit about our awards this evening and the history of our awards. Since 2019, the Springfield College Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Awards recognizes students, staff, faculty, and community members who have made a significant contribution to diversity and inclusion on campus or within the community. Representatives and recipients must demonstrate a commitment to advancing efforts of diversity, equity, and inclusion at Springfield College and within our community. They are also required to serve as an advocate or agent of change within their sphere of influences on campus or within the community. And last but not least, They are to be implementing programs, services, or initiatives which foster greater appreciation towards building authentic relationships at Springfield College and within our community. And so it gives me great joy to announce the nominations of the 3 awards that we have for community, employees, and students. For community, we have Camille Butterfield and Terry Maxey, who are nominated. For our employees, we had Adeze Aleze Dinla, Danielle Griffin, Anthony Hill, Stephanie Logan, Maura Long, myself, Felicia Lundquist, and Cecilia Wills. And for our students, we had Sharice Del Vecchio, Ann Ferris, Tyson Johnson, Paris Lozana, Leon Morant, Saraji Omoru, Chris Rim, Luther Wade, and Derek Webb. Our first award will present to the community, and I will hand it off to my colleague, Dr. Hill, Dr. Anthony Hill, that is.
Good evening, Dr. Smith. I want to thank you for your words, very inspiring. So thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
My name is Dr. Anthony Hill, and I'm honored to serve on this Dr. MLK Planning Committee. Today, I'd like to present the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Award to Community Award to Miss Camille Butterfield Elliott. Miss Elliott began her tenure at Springfield College for 30 years. One of the founding staff members at the School of Human Services, renamed the School of Professional and Continuing Studies, and most recently, Regional Online and Continuing Education. I personally had the pleasure of being a work study student as an undergraduate student at Springfield College and had the pleasure of having Miss Elliott as my supervisor. Miss Elliott is very engaged in improving the greater Springfield community. She connects with those activities on campus life. She's been involved in the Women's Fund of Western Massachusetts, instrumental in bringing the League of Women Voters Civics Fest to the college, and very passionate about promoting voter registration and participation drives on campus. She is the chair of Ward 4 for the Springfield Democratic Committee. She is connected to the Sons of Thunder, encouraging Black male high school students to attend and find success in college. Ms. Elliott has worked tirelessly to maximize student success and to strengthen the quality of services for diverse, non-traditional students at Springfield College, as well as make Springfield a better community. Congratulations, Ms. Elliott. We congratulate you for both your service in the community and at Springfield College. A plaque will be available for you to pick up next week in the Inclusion and Community Engagement Office. The next presenter will be a well-respected, hardworking, and deeply devoted professor and close colleague of mine at Springfield College, Dr. Allison Cumming McCann, who will be presenting the Employee Award presentation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hill. I appreciate it. What a wonderful award. I'm always hesitant when I follow people who have such, wonderful ways with their words, but I am really lucky tonight that I get to give the award for our faculty, diversity, equity, and inclusion to Dr. Stephanie Logan. Dr. Logan is the chair of our education department, and she's widely recognized and valued as a leader in multicultural education, both nationally and on our campus. Dr. Logan began her tenure at Springfield College in the fall of 2017, and since then, she's been actively supporting diversity and equity initiatives, serving on countless committees, providing leadership and professional development, supporting and mentoring colleagues, and working with our students in the classroom and beyond. She's undoubtedly made an impact in the time that she's been here. One of her nominators stated, from the moment she stepped on campus, Stephanie Logan has been a leader in creating more equity and justice at Springfield College. She served on many campus committees focused on these issues and undertakes more than her share of the labor at Springfield College. That no doubt is true. In addition to maintaining an active line of scholarship in the way of multiple publications and presentations in the field of multicultural education, she recently published a book entitled Integrating Social Justice Education in Teacher Preparation Programs. She was also recently honored with an Inspiration Award by the African American Female Professor Association. Her impact on campus goes well beyond this work, and those who have had the opportunity to work with her have seen this. Dr. Logan currently serves on so many committees. Just to name a few, the Campus Planning Committee on Race, she's the co-chair for the Race and Ethnicity Working Group, and she participated on the Faculty Institute Planning Team. And that is just a handful of things that I'm mentioning. She has had a busy, busy year. This fall, she served as the inaugural speaker for the Social Work and Behavioral Sciences Anti-Racism Speaker Series. And she currently serves as the advisor for our Black Student Union. Our Vice President and Provost, Dr. Martha Potvin, stated Stephanie came at an opportune time for Springfield College. Besides her leadership talent, she brings a commitment to make an impact on making our broader community more culturally sensitive, more diverse, and more socially responsible. We appreciate that. Dr. Logan is well respected on campus by her students, colleagues, and administrators. Her brilliance, commitment, insight, persistence, and belief that we can do better and be better is what makes her truly deserving of this recognition. Please join me in recognizing my colleague and friend, Dr. Stephanie Logan, as the recipient of the Faculty Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Award. Congratulations, Stephanie. I now get to pass the mic to one of my favorite people on campus, someone who tirelessly is there for students, and it is so incredibly perfect that she is giving the award to our students, or the first award to our students, Felicia Lundquist.
Thank you, Allison. I'm going to start off with a quote. In 1857, Frederick Douglass said, "If there's no struggle, there's no progress. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet deprecate agitation are men who want crops without plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its many waters. Power concedes nothing without a demand and never did, and it never will." This person, when I think about who is going to be a recipient of this, is someone who focuses on leadership as an ongoing process for social change, and using it as a framework, and has opened doors and opportunities for transformational learning and social change leadership. Zooming in through the perspectives of individuals and institutions, as well as the interrelationships between them and the importance of the intersections of identity, have offered an opportunity for success. It has offered an opportunity for our community to share governance and collaboration, to promote equity, empowerment, and social justice leadership across our communities and across our silos. It has offered an opportunity for awareness raising and advocacy, understanding through self-reflection and understanding the importance of naming it, whether it is the authenticity of it, the agency and access of understanding it, and how our power and privilege uphold or disturb it, while also recognizing how and where our agency and access plays a part in it. She also has demonstrated the intentions and impact of it, and also unpacking and unbreaking the contradictory messages that enable it to live and function in oppressive systems and institutions with greater awareness and benefits as we achieve things like cultural shifts, social change leadership, and growing our legacy. Like Dr. Smith told us this evening, it's important to plant your seeds deep within. Unity wins and love keeps us together. I believe that the individual that we have chosen for this award is very deserving of it, as all of our individuals are. But it gives me great pleasure to honor the folks that have claimed their seat at the table and taken action to change the story so that it's reflective of the individual narrative. This is an individual who continues to empower people to take ownership of their power while holding everyone accountable. She demonstrates advocacy, analysis, and the power of pedagogy through accomplishment, advocacy, and analysis. She is someone that understands collaboration and the importance of liberatory consciousness and commitment to social change, social justice, and equity. Please give a virtual round of applause to our very own PsyD scholar and OMA, Office of Multicultural Affairs and Cultural Connections Leadership Program Graduate Associate, Charisse Del Vecchio. She is not only growing her legacy, but she's growing ours. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Rudder, who will announce our other student.
Good evening, everybody. It's my pleasure to be here, and my pleasure really to give tribute to Derek Webb, a senior, undergraduate. Derek is a senior from Hamden, Connecticut. He's getting his degree in Bachelor of Science in Physical Education. Derek does many things on the campus. He's vice president for the Men of Excellence Club, where he's responsible for leading community events on campus, as well as community service projects for the club at the same time. He's also president of the Phys Ed Health Education Club. I've had the privilege of knowing Derek for the last couple years. He's been a wonderful person to get to know. I've asked him a couple questions in preparation for this award. I've asked him what is his favorite thing about Springfield, and he says his group of friends that constantly push him to become better and help him through adversity at the college. He's most proud of getting his voice while being here at the institution and how to use it to help others and be a force for change. Physical education teacher, and he's going to be a great one. I write recommendations all the time, and it's men like Derek who go into the K through 12 system I am extremely, extremely proud of, because I know they will make a difference. They'll be an influence, and they'll be a great role model for a lot of kids. We're lucky to have him, and Springfield College should be proud that he will be an alum of this fine institution. Derek, congratulations, job well done. And I will turn it over now to Dave Mcmahon, our director for spiritual life at the college.
Thank you, David. It is my special honor this year to recognize a special category. So generally we recognize individuals for their excellence in the work around diversity, equity, and inclusion. But given this year and the efforts by some of our student groups on campus, the committee thought it important to recognize the collective action of individual groups and the power of those groups working together. This has been a year of global tumult. In the midst of a pandemic, we as a society and a college have also been confronting our communal legacy of racial injustice. In a year of crises, many prophetic voices have risen to speak truth to our current situation. And at this college, where we pride ourselves on equipping servant leaders, we have been lucky to witness the work of such prophets in our midst. Those who, in the words of our speaker tonight, face negative silence with a positive stand, who comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. In that liberating work, a number of our student groups deserve special recognition. And tonight, the committee wishes to acknowledge in alphabetical order the following groups: the Black Student Union, Counselors for Social Justice, the Cultural Connections Leadership Program, Men of Excellence, Scientists Embracing Equity, Embracing Equality and Diversity, Student Society for Bridging Diversity, and the Women of Power. These student groups in word and deed have modeled how to both love an institution and its ideals while holding it to account for its past and present failures to always live up to those ideals. From their very visible work, be it through organizing the March on Alden Street, social media campaigns, or countless programs on education and activism throughout the year, but also to the work behind the scenes, countless conversations with deans and departments, with both faculty and friends, with administration and even alumni. These students model engaged, informed, and compassionate activism. They have, throughout this year, embodied the imperative embedded in our college hymn, "May strong youth bring back the vision of earthly paradise." And more personally, I think I speak as one of the advisors to one of these groups, and having worked with any of the other groups, these students individually and as groups, to quote Dr. Smith, restore my faith to do the work. And it is in that faith that we draw strength for the work ahead. And the work ahead is great, but we can take inspiration from their collective journey this year. May they and we continue to pursue truth so we may arrive one day to wisdom. May neither they nor we faint through faltering years. Be this our continued task, O Springfield, through all the years. And now it is my pleasure to hand the virtual mic over to Jasmine Chapman, Assistant Director of Alumni Relations.
Thank you, David. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jasmine Chapman, graduate class of 2017, and I'm thrilled to be back home at Springfield College as a new Assistant Director in the Office of Alumni Relations. Tonight, I have the pleasure of acknowledging the Legacy Alumni Group. This group, who primarily attended Springfield College between 1968 and 1972, and for whom many were involved in the occupation of the administrative building in 1969 and or Massasoit Hall in 1970, came together this past year to bring attention to the racial strife on campus and within our country during their time at Springfield College. These alumni of Springfield College continue to live our Humanics philosophy of leadership and service to others. They have stepped up to serve and have called upon us to act. This fall, the Legacy Alumni of Color called on us, the Springfield College community, to remember our past and boldly embrace our future as we move forward to create a more welcoming and inclusive environment for students of color and a better community for all. To this end, they have provided the campus with a blueprint for change. They have been instrumental in mentoring present students, and they have called for further efforts to implement a BIPOC mentoring program. And 2 named endowed funds have been set up by members of this group to make the Springfield College community a better place. This evening, we acknowledge you, our Legacy alumni, for asking of us and showing us that we can be better. We thank you for your courage and continued dedication to Springfield College, and for supporting the next generation of Legacy alumni. Here this evening to provide a few brief words on behalf of the Legacy Alumni Group is Dr. Donald Brown, class of 1969. Donald Brown.
Thank you so much, Jasmine, and good evening, everyone. I am Donald Brown, graduate of the class of 1969 and 1978. Before I begin, I'm wondering if you would kindly observe with me a moment of silence for Mrs. Cecile Trescott Brommery, the wife of former Springfield College president Randolph Brommery. Mrs. Brommery passed away late last week. What a joy and high honor it is for me to accept this award on behalf of my dear brothers and sisters, the Legacy Alumni of Color of Springfield College. We thank you, the Division of Inclusion and Engagement, the Martin Luther King Jr. Lecture Planning Committee, Dr. Calvin Hill and Ms. Felicia Lundquist for presenting us with this award. The Legacy Alumni of Color came together 8 months ago, and our initial aim, because many of us hadn't seen each other in about 50 years, was to check in with each other to express gratitude for having shared the calming experience of taking over the college's administration building in 1969 and Massasoit Hall in 1970. But then we learned that current BIPOC students, like us, before them, were having a difficult time at what they considered to be an unwelcoming environment. So our instant resolve was to develop a series of strategies aimed at creating not only a more welcoming and inclusive environment for them, but for all people of color who either matriculate or work at Springfield College. We did not and do not want their experience to be the same as ours. We wanted to be far better. Indeed, on both coming in and going out, we want BIPOC students, faculty, staff, and administrators to say that their tenure at Springfield College was among the best years of their lives. These past few months have been a labor of love. We formed 5 committees. We developed an 18-page document called the Legacy Blueprint for Change, and we met with President Cooper, several members of the Board of Trustees, and the senior leadership team to discuss ways to ensure that all who enter the portals of Springfield College enter a place where they are treated with the utmost dignity and respect, and are provided with the requisite skills to not only persist and graduate from Springfield College, but also do so in their future careers. The legacy alumni of color do this because we love our alma mater. We love Springfield College. It has not always, in our judgment, loved us back, but we sense that while the college still has some work to do in the enhancement of diversity realm, it has come some distance from where it used to be. And so again, the legacy alumni of color of Springfield College proudly accepts this wonderful acknowledgement. In closing, if I might, I'd like to leave you all with these words from our late dear brother, Congressman John Lewis. He said, "Never, ever be afraid to make some noise and get into good trouble, necessary trouble." Again, thank you profoundly for acknowledging the work of my dear brothers and sisters of the legacy alumni of Springfield College. Thank you.
Dr. Brown, thank you so much. Thank you so much for those words. And thank you for reminding us that we can indeed get into good trouble. I think our speaker this evening, Dr. Smith, got into good trouble.
Yes.
Dr. King got into good trouble.
Yes.
Our alum, Dr. Tom Waddell, got into good trouble.
That's right.
I'm so proud to be part of a community where many are getting into good trouble.
Yes.
So thank you all so much for attending. I know that this was a different environment for us. I hope next year for our King celebration, our 9th annual celebration, that we will be able to come together on campus to truly celebrate and honor the legacy of Dr. King. So again, thank you so much for being with us this evening. And let me end by saying thank you so much for our awardees, as well as those that were nominated for our awards this evening. And thank you so much to those that received special recognition. Our student groups. The campus would not be the same if it were not for your work and your diligence in making us better. To our legacy group, thank you so much for both challenging us as an institution, but for also, as Dr. Brown said, loving us and loving Springfield College. And special thank you to Tommie and Delois Smith. We had the opportunity to have a conversation with Dr. Smith and his wife about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. And it felt like, as Chris was saying earlier, that we weren't talking to someone that we were inviting to come speak with us, but someone that was part of our community, part of our family, and they just opened their wonderful home to us virtually. So Tommie, thank you so much. And I look forward to getting a box of Wheaties. Keep in mind, everyone, that unity does indeed win. Have a great evening, everyone. And please, as we talk about at Springfield College, go in leadership and go in service. And Tommie, you've got that Wheaties box in front of you. You want to give us any last words? You're on mute, my friend.
To everyone, it was a beautiful night.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Good night, everyone.